Let me start with something most founders don't want to hear. Your company is not limited by your strategy. It's limited by how you think, decide, and lead.
I like to call it that it is a cancer, and it spreads literally like a cancer. And then after this is in the team, you cannot remove it anymore.
I'm joined by Bruna de Guimarães, former CEO and CPO at Pipedrive, founder, angel investor, and advisor to over 50 startups. How should actually founders think about decisions when they should bring in investors?
You have to think of investors as a marriage where you know there's going to be a divorce. The moment you bring an investor in, you lose control of your company, and you need to understand this very, very much because
let me start with something most founders don't want to hear. Your company is not limited by your strategy. It's limited by how you think, decide, and lead. And most of the time, that's the real bottleneck. Today I have a very interesting guest. She's seen companies from the inside and also from the outside. And she gives her unique perspective on what actually makes founders succeed or they fail. And she also can recognize patterns which most people miss, especially the ones that quietly break companies from the inside. I'm joined by Bruna de Guimarães, former CEO and CPO at Pipedrive, founder, angel investor, and advisor to over 50 startups. So Bruna, I'm really glad to have you here.
thank you so much for having me, Milan. It's a pleasure to be here in the podcast and to share anything I have with your listeners. Yeah, a little bit about me. As you already said, a big part of my a big part of my career has been in the software industry. I actually started as a lawyer, and now it's been over 13 years in the software industry after I had my first life crisis in the legal world and said I cannot do this anymore. And I've seen the companies, like software companies, in multiple areas, from business to product to operations. And for the last almost 7 years, I actually have my own company called Be Bold, in which I advise founders and I help them across everything. I like to call myself a therapist for founders.
That's a great term. So you've been a founder yourself, a CEO, a CPO, advisor, investor, and also you worked with over 50 plus founders. What has that perspective which taught you about how companies actually can grow today?
Wow, that has taught me a lot, and how everyone is different, right? And every founder is different. It's a human being ultimately in the end of the company. And that's why I have to say that my company is called Be Bold. And so a lot of my perspectives, it's also bold perspectives. There's a lot of people that agree with it. There's people that don't agree with it. But this is also how I like to communicate in a very direct way with these founders. And for me, this is the main learning I've had through this journey, is that it's not the same for every single company. If there would be a playbook for everyone would be very rich and everyone would be very wealthy, and we'll all not struggle through our startups and our products. So it's very important that even though you have competitors, even though you have people that have done it before you or with you, you go through your own journey and you make your company.
Yeah, it really depends on your current skill set, your environment, your beliefs, your values, and all of these things which actually makes your identity at the end. But can you maybe think about the past 3 founders maybe which you worked with are actually doing well? So what did they do like differently than the others?
That's a very easy answer. They changed. I think they grow with the company, right? I think that's very important, that the only constant we know, the only certainty we have, is that there is change. There is a change in your product. There is a change in the environment. There's a change in the economy. There's a change in you and your private life. So you as a founder, you also need to grow with the company. You also need to grow with the business. So also being able to let go of specific tasks that you were taking care of before, then now it's time for someone else to take care of, because the company is at a stage where you have to take to pay attention into a different thing. The same thing as you actually then needing to take care of a different part of the company, because the company grew so much that now this is the part where you need to pay the most attention to. The same thing with the product. This idea, most of the time, the idea that you have as a founder of this product that you wanted to have, it can change because the market has changed, the revenue is not coming in, or customers are telling you something different. So you need to be able to adapt to it. And I think founders, the last founders I've seen that are actually very successful, and the last founders I've worked with that are very successful, are founders that are constantly adapting and changing.
Yeah, but are they growing before the company, or the company grows but then they grow?
They are very self-reflective, I have to say. I think this is a trait I see very similar through all of them, is people that are willing to hear, people that are also very strong in their minds, but they're also willing to understand what's going on around them, because we have a lot of founders also that are very stubborn, that it's what they see and it's how they believe. But no, these ones are also listening to their environment, listening to the people that are working with them. It's people that are doing therapy in a way, or they have a coach, or they have someone that actually is an advisor inside the company, because as you know, and being a founder, it's a very lonely position. You have to deal with a lot of things for alone, and having someone that you can share this with allows you to actually have to work a lot on yourself and be self-reflective. And I think this is one of those really big things that allows you to actually grow and change with this company that you have. So I think it's not something that it can be that you were like this before. It can be that it's you are learning how to be like that. But I think it's something that you work on yourself rather than it's everything at the same time.
Yeah. What I found for me is when I work more on myself, it reflects to the company and not the opposite, because I spend time for reflecting my minds to see what works well, what doesn't work. And then it comes to actually analyze your activities so you can see what to let go, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing which doesn't bring value to the company, and you can become the bottleneck, and then find the best people who can actually take care of that even better than you. But yeah, and do you maybe, is there anything which they previously wasted time on, but now they stopped doing that and actually is different than the rest?
I think every company has something, but what I always tell the founders I work with is you need to understand that your company is your company, it's your baby. No one will do the work that you do in your business, right? So even when you delegate, there are always going to be things that you're going to think, oh, I would have done differently, or I would have done more, or I would have done better. So there's always this feeling inside of you, but you need to understand that it's not their baby, it's your baby. And it's a very hard thing for a lot of founders to understand. So when they do delegate and they do give those tasks away, it's a lot of mind work to be like, okay, it's okay that they did it that way. Of course, we don't accept bad work in the company, but you know what I mean. That it's really on a perspective of they will never do in the way that I actually would do.
Yeah. So you're saying that you mostly work on the mindset of the people, that the rest of the team will not do the work as best as they can do at that time, and it's okay to accept that in the very beginning.
Exactly.
That's great. I think it's great lesson for everyone who is afraid to just let things go off their plate.
Definitely. And that's why a lot of founders keep everything for themselves, and then they get overwhelmed, and then they become the bottleneck, as you correctly put it, for a lot of topics, because they're like, oh, I need to pay attention on this. I need to pay attention on that. I need to be the one to approve everything. Always there's a lot of this, like founders are the ones approving the last thing before it comes out. And sometimes, do you really need to actually be the bottleneck? Are you sure that the company will not actually thrive a lot more, and you will get a lot more data or insights or feedback if you actually let people do it? And at the same time, as a leader yourself, you are actually letting people make mistakes and letting people actually grow inside the company. And I think this is also the relationship that you have with your middle management or management that you have in your company, or individual contributors that are there also because they believed in you, they believed in the product, they believe in the company, and they want to become better, they want to grow as well. These are all human beings as well, so it's taking those people in consideration at the same time.
Just without the self-reflection, it's really hard to actually detect all of these.
It's exactly, yeah.
And from everything you have seen by now, what actually predicts founder success that has nothing to do with the idea which they had before?
This self-reflection, this change, this is for me a number one thing, because and I tell you, a lot of people search for me, and a lot of founders come to me because they have a specific problem inside their company. Most of the time they say, we have an issue between sales and tech, and we need to align them, and we want to bring you in to help with that. And there has not been a single time that I have come in and I figured out that the problem was bigger than that. It was not actually that. It was about actually this communication from a C-level or founder level to the rest of the company. There is this misalignment, and there is this this work that needs to happen. So I come in, and then I actually start working together with the founders and together with the C-levels, that we change this mindset around, and then automatically the alignment between the sales and tech actually gets solved.
I have one quote which I always revoke is, people are always lying, and not in a bad way, but because when they tell you a problem, it's usually not the problem, the main problem. So you have to uncover what's behind the problem.
Exactly.
Even in our case, when they come, we need more leads. Okay, but the leads are not the problem. Maybe you don't have traffic. Maybe you have leads, but you're not closing well enough. So you have to discuss a little bit more just to find the bigger problem behind the problem.
Exactly. And that is all about the self-reflection of looking in and actually thinking what it is that I can do, that I have been doing, how is that I communicate, how it is that I am leading this company. If I have a co-founder, how are we actually dealing with each other? Investors, the same thing. I also see a lot of this blaming effect, right? Oh, the investor said so. The C-level, it's a lot of blaming, and instead of actually looking internally and being like, okay, this is what I can actually work on.
And when you have like initial meetings with the founders, but earlier, are there any like signals which you detect, which makes you think, oh, this will work or this will not work?
Definitely their personality. I would say very stubborn people that are not willing to listen. I think this is really important. I come in and I tell them straight away, like, this is not the case. This is not the problem that you have. And if they straight away tell me, yeah, no, but this is the problem, I like that's it. You have to come in and solve it. I realize that there is a blockage, and then I tell them, hey, like, I think whenever you realize that there is something beyond this problem and you want to work through it, we can work together. But it's a lose-lose situation for us if we start working together. And
time and money.
Exactly. And the same thing, I have a certain amount of questions that I ask founders and C-levels, sorry, before I start working with them. that also allows me to understand a little bit more about their personality and to see if they trust me as well. Are they just like, did they just get me or contact me because someone recommended me? That
Yeah.
also this person, do they trust this person who recommended me or
Yeah.
not? So this also makes me analyze and see, okay, these are people that are gonna be able to work with me to change this, or they just want to delegate something to me and not be involved on it at all.
Yeah, they just to accept the new game which they're entering, because you have to be open, you have to be vulnerable to share what's exactly behind. Maybe it's in your personality, in your personal, not in the business, which reflects to the business.
Exactly.
And what happens with co-founders? Because in tech, in B2B SaaS, usually have a lot of partnerships, relationships, and usually like we're tending to find that perfect match in these partnerships. But after that, a lot of them like break up. So what actually caused that to break a partnership?
It's a very great question. I think it comes with the goods and the bads, right? So as when we talk about a sole founder, it's very lonely. It's a very, very lonely, very upsetting to be there and not having anyone to share those struggles with and share the responsibility with. But the moment you have someone, you do have those sharing moments. You have someone to open up to, but at the same time, you can have a lot of disagreements. And again, I say it's like a marriage. I think it's the person you're spending most of your time with. It's the person that you're constantly communicating with. So you need to learn how to be vulnerable with each other. You need to learn how to communicate with each other, and you need to learn to sacrifice things as well for each other. I think when you have a lot of people that are not willing to sacrifice, and then they start not communicating, they start not sharing things with each other, then they start indirectly doing things behind each other's backs, then they start indirectly talking about the other person to their reports or to the people around or to the investors. I've seen this happen a lot. This starts building up a lot of things instead of just sitting in a room and finding ways to communicate and finding ways to grow, because ultimately it will not be how you want it all the time. It's the same thing at home. It's the same thing in a marriage. So how are you actually communicating in a way that you are, this time we're both aligned, and we're both going to communicate to our team that we are a team and that we made this decision together. And the team doesn't need to know that the other person didn't agree with it, or they don't need to know that the other person had a big issue with it, but they need to find a way to be as a team and work together and communicate this to the external world.
Yeah, like the early communications about anything which you feel, if you bring it on the table, then it's easier to fix. But is there like any point where it's actually too late to fix that? If something happens and you have like a separate visions at one point?
Yes. I think there's a couple of points. One, when an investment comes in, and then investors are involved, and the investors feel this lack of partnership between them, because this is really a really big moment. And the second one is when it spreads to the team. I like to call it that it is a cancer. So, and it spreads literally like a cancer. And then after this is in the team, you cannot remove it anymore. It's very, very hard for you to start it over, because everyone in the team knows that there is an issue between the two of you. Everyone knows in the team that you two are not aligned. And then the teams inside the company that are reporting to each of the founders start also having those disagreements, and the company then is not walking anymore in the same direction.
Yeah, I think people are smart enough to understand what's going on. So if they report to different people, they get different directions, then it's clearly that the vision is not the same. But you said it well, that when the investments is coming, so these guys are even more smarter, so they can feel if there is like disalignment in the partnership.
Very much. They're used to it, right? They deal with founders and C-levels all the time. So then that's when it also starts the fight of, okay, maybe should one of you leave, or like should one of you let go of your role? Then also the fight when it comes to responsibilities in the company, right? They want to bring new people in, but then one of the founders has a demotion, the other one has a promotion in a way, or he stays in the same job. So then this inequality stays the same. This inequality grows even more with each other, and then the fights and bickering starts even more. So it just keeps growing like a snowball.
And what advice will you give to someone who is thinking about choosing some co-founder? What he should do in advance, or what he should prepare for?
Yeah, I would say spend a lot of time together. Go to a trip, like if you could, I know it's not an easy thing to do, but in an ideal scenario, go camping together, go do something very hard together, a hike together, but something not of like a simple thing, a hard one. Go through something that is actually hard together, spend a weekend together, just locked in a room, see what challenge both, see how you guys deal with problems, deal with situations, like how you communicate around things, around solving problems. If you can't do that, do it in a smaller way. Even nowadays you have ChatGPT, you have Claude, you have so many tools. Just put ideas there, like even if it is a day of escape rooms and puzzles and questions. But I think it's really important to talk to each other, learn how to communicate with each other, even and I really mean it, even do therapy or coaching together, really to learn how to communicate before you actually start hiring people and growing your business.
Yeah, I think this is really great advice, because on that way you will even see the habits of that person which he has in like stressful situation, which are not like on a daily basis regular things to do. So
Exactly.
the way he behaves, he acts, maybe will give you better perspective how he will act when it comes to handling something bigger.
Exactly.
Because it's easy to do when everything is going good.
Everyone is wonderful when everything is great.
Yeah.
And this is really when things get tough, when things are like a messy, confusing, frustrating struggles, that's when you really get to see the other side. And you need to try to get to that side as fast as possible before you're too much in the deep.
Yeah, and when we are here at this topic, what happens about the invisible co-founder or the partner, the spouse which you have at home? What do they actually carry on, which you are maybe not aware as the founders?
I think depends if you are a sole founder and if you have co-founders in the company. I think for sole founders, the partners, these invisible partners, they become the co-founders of the company. They are so important for you they become this partner, this therapist for you, because they don't have anyone else to talk to, right? The founders don't have anyone else to share this with. So their partner starts to become someone that they just come in and kind of just vomit everything that happens on their day to day. And this person needs to be very resilient to not only hear and listen to what the founders is saying, but also to support them, because dealing with it's very very lonely. So they need to support them, to push them, to also give them the gas sometimes when they're like, oh, I just want to throw everything up in the sky. And from the other side, when you have co-founders, it's very weird, because you need to understand that there is another person in that founder's life that takes up as much space as you, as your founder, as the partner. So it's understanding that this relationship that the co-founders have with each other, it's very important, and they are going to share a lot of things with each other that sometimes you are not going to be involved as a third party. So, but at the same time, you need to understand that they're building something very, very meaningful to them. And but I think in either way, in either situations, it's understanding that there's another priority in their lives and supporting them and really pushing them to move forward.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a
That's a
baby.
great advice. Yeah, yeah, as you said before. So
Yeah.
before moving forward, if anyone is watching and have some actionable like tips from out of this, just comment below the video so we hear your
Yeah.
thoughts and see if this resonates with your situation. Let's discuss a bit about the leadership thing. I know that you speak a lot about the tension between being liked and being trusted. So how do you think that as a leader? Is it better to being liked or being trusted?
Yeah, it's also one of the big debates I have with a lot of the founders and C-levels that I work with. There's a lot of them that just have this compulsory obsession about being liked. They want everyone to like them. And that's not being a leader. That's not the definition of being a leader. So for me, it's way more about the trust. You need to be able to make a decision, and you need to make a decision that people won't like. Sometimes you need to fire someone that is great, that you like them as a person, that you like them as a human being. But unfortunately, it could be also that they're not doing the work correctly, but also at the same time that the company just doesn't have the money or the revenue anymore. It has different priorities, and you have to make this cut, and then you end up having to make this decision. So the relationship between you and your employees should always be about you trying to build trust rather than you having them like you. It's I keep repeating over and over again. For me, it's like a child. It's like your baby is also not, you don't need to be liked by your baby all the time, by your child all the time. I don't know if anyone here has kids, but whenever you have kids, they're going to be like, oh, I hate you, or I don't like it, or they're going to cry. And they're like, why are you doing this? It's for the best. It's the best thing we can do for them. We're not doing that to hurt them. We're not doing that to make them suffer. But
Yeah.
it's an important thing that we need to do. And with that, it makes them trust us. And with that, it makes them learn, hey, she did that or he did that because of a bigger reason. And maybe they don't see that at the time as well, but it's your responsibility as a founder to have your company and the best interests of your company at all times there, in focus. And sometimes that means not being liked.
Yeah, what I notice is when you try to be liked, you will not give the feedback to the person who will make them better. And
Exactly.
with that, you're making a disservice to that person, to the company, to everyone else in the environment. And with that, again, you're not showing your leadership because you're hiding to just not say something that you maybe will not be liked at that point, not after they just consider that as a constructive feedback which makes them better. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you being here. But let me tell you something real quick. Most B2B SaaS teams don't lose traffic overnight. They lose it slowly, quietly, until it shows up in the pipeline. And by then, it's already expensive to fix it. So if you're facing with a traffic drop and you want to understand where that risk is coming from before it hits your revenue, we've put together a practical guide. It's 4-in-1 traffic drop prevention checklist. It shows you where to look up first, what signals most B2B SaaS teams ignore, and how to spot the gaps between SEO, content, and ownership. You can find the link in the description.
Exactly, a feedback culture. This is super, a very good point that you're bringing here. There's a lot of companies that they're like, oh, let's just do feedbacks. We have one-on-ones every week, but then they sit down and they talk about
Brainstorming.
brainstorming or very like even just personal things or simple things that are important, but it's not everything. It's not what actually makes them grow. So they did something that it was not correct, or they did something where you could actually give a constructive feedback feedback, you don't do it because you are scared of how they're gonna feel, or you're scared about you being the bad guy in the situation. The same thing with making decisions in the company. You really sometimes need to make tough decisions. As a founder, you're doing that constantly. So you need to be able to do that without the feeling of they won't like me.
Yeah, and we all have like a blind spot. So if there is no one telling us this is not something which you're doing right, try this instead. So you would not grow as a person.
Exactly.
Before you mentioned something about decisions, and as leaders, we often need to make decisions without so much information. So how do you personally deal with that when you don't have all the information available, or how much information you need to just make some decision?
That's a very tough question. How much information you need to make a decision? I think it depends on every single case scenario that you have. It depends on case to case, but you need to start to create for yourself a confidence level scale. I like to call it. We in product you use that a lot because sometimes you don't have that the amount of data that you would like to have. But you need to put a confidence level, and you need to have a time stamp on it as well. I need to make a decision by that time. And I always like to say your gut is also really what you should focus on. It's a part of also not being liked. Sometimes your gut feelings is like, that decision most likely is.
Are you relying mostly on gut feeling or on some data or some people which you have as a resource?
Always, if you have data, you need to look on data, but sometimes you don't have enough data for those decisions to be made, and you need to create this confidence level for that decision. And then if you don't have that data, you need to go for this. What actually gives you confidence? What is actually that makes you feel like, okay, I can make this decision. I can feel good about this decision, or I can feel comfortable with this decision. And then if you don't have any data, if you don't have anyone to talk to, if you don't have anything else, then I really rely on the gut, because your gut says a lot about you. The gut is actually, a lot of people don't know, but is the center of your body, and there are things that even before you notice, it affects your stomach, it affects your gut. Because of how you're feeling. So this is where I would really say, hey, just trust your instincts and go for it and create this. But if you have a chance of creating a confidence level, I really recommend it. Start creating your own confidence level, and the more data you have, of course, the better info. But don't wait too long, because you will never have a perfect answer. And if you waited too long, and if you waited for it to be perfect, whatever it will be, you waited too long. Yeah, it's too long.
And what happens if you make a decision and then you know that you're wrong? How do you handle that?
That's completely normal. And I think there's a lot of scenarios where there's of course different levels of as a founder, you can make something a decision wrong on a legal side. That's harder than if you make it on a day-to-day something with your employee. But I think owning up to it, I really talk about this all the time. It's one of my biggest issues I have, I must say, with LinkedIn or with a lot of the social networks out there, because it's always about the beautiful things, the 5 things I learned as a founder, the five things I did correctly to build the but we don't talk about our fuck ups. We don't talk about the problems, the issues. And I really like to call it fuck ups, because it's the day-to-day. You make so many mistakes. And I also think that your employees, the people that are with you, that's also how you build the trust with those people, is you share, you be like, hey, I actually made a mistake here, but how it is that I'm going to turn it around. A lot of people are scared of admitting that, because they think that people are not going to trust them anymore. They think that if they're failures, then it's the opposite.
Their mistakes after.
Exactly. And it's the opposite. people also build trust with you because they start seeing a vulnerability in you and they start seeing themselves in you. And that's actually how this trust starts growing. And it makes them afterwards also come to you and be like, hey, I actually also made a mistake like that. Or I know someone that made the same mistake. Or they actually help you solve it because maybe you also don't even know how to solve this problem.
Yeah.
But this communication and admitting it, it's very, very important. This fuck ups acknowledgement.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I suppose you had in your team some people which are maybe more experienced or more senior than you. So what's like the hardest part leading people who are more seniors?
It's to get that trust. Because I can say this from a personal experience of mine. There is, and it touches on another level, but I don't know if people are going to be seeing my face, but I don't look as the age I actually have. So I feel like I look younger than what I actually am, and people come to me and they're like, oh my God, you already have a child, or you already did so much. It's hard sometimes for them to believe that. So it's hard for them to get this trust on what it is that I'm actually going to do. And I had people in my team that were double my age. There was the age of my dad and my mom. So making sure that they understand as well, because for me as a leader, you also need to hire the best people on your team. So they are there because they know more than I do. They know things that I don't know. So I also want to learn with them. Being a leader doesn't necessarily mean that I know everything. I don't know everything. I'm still figuring it out at the same time. My job is to actually make them thrive in their day-to-day. If they have a success, they're the ones that need to be on the spotlight, and if they fail, I'm the one that needs to actually be taking the blame of it
How
all.
do you usually explain or show that to them so they understand it? Because there is an ego situation when they maybe they would not like to listen to that.
Yes, it's always a conversation. I always try to also be vulnerable with them. I tell them how I feel. I tell them how what's going on with me and how I feel with the situation. I also try to read a lot about of their body language. I think makes a big difference, and it's something that starts building up. There are some people that are more okay with it. After this conversation, it becomes very a natural conversation, a natural relationship. With the ones that are tougher, they require more of a day-to-day show of things, right? So they need to see that that I can make a decision on tough things, that they need to see that on those tough scenarios, it's not just me talking about something, it's me actually doing. And I think these people are always more towards the doer aspect, so it takes more time for me to enter there. But I am a very persistent person, so I would say persistency with those people also is the key aspect. If you let go, if you just don't try anymore, they'll notice. And I think this is also a part of a difference of generation when it comes to it. You see also now with the new generation coming in, I think they have the problem, and I see this even with our phones, right? We are easily scrolling and everything that it's distracted exactly on our day-to-day. We just change very fast. I don't like this job, I just change it. I don't like this, I just change it. It has the good sides that, of course, you're trying to search for your happiness. You're trying to search for what fulfills you. But if you think about our parents, if you think about that older generation, they were there. Like, there's no such thing as changing jobs all the time. There's no such thing as you have a resilience and a persistence that it's very hard to find nowadays. So showing this to them gives them this perspective of trust as well on to your work and to your side.
Yeah, just to summarize, so persistence, honest conversation, and show vulnerability to them, and then
And
approach
actions,
the
yeah,
next challenge. Yeah, great.
exactly.
Let's now talk about some topic which by now is not covered on this podcast, and that's returning from leave as a mother. So you describe that as an identity crisis. What
Yes.
actually breaks?
You change completely, right? You left the company, or when you found out you're pregnant, great news, amazing. If you wanted, right? If you were trying for one, that was the case for me, and it was beautiful. Yay! But your life hasn't changed. Your priorities are still the same, and you're there, you're working, and you left work to go to your maternity leave. Everyone says bye, then that baby comes in and everything about you changes. Personally, I remember looking at myself even in the mirror, and this changes for a lot of women, but personally, I didn't even recognize myself physically, mentally. You're just like, who am I? I have now this thing in front of me that matters a lot more than anything else in the world. My life is for this person. And then you return to work, and it's not, you're not staying anymore until 7-8 p.m. in the office, and you're not joining anymore for drinks. You're not chit-chatting in the office, or you're way more like productive with your work. You're way more careful with your time. You're also way more attentive to details that before you weren't. So also people in your office that are not involved on your maternity side, they were just seeing you at the office, and the last they saw was a different person. It's also a tough thing for them to adapt to what it is, this new reality of yours.
What usually people don't understand around this topic?
That I think, especially people that don't have kids, that you have a different priority, that picking up your kids in school is a priority, dropping them in school is a priority, putting them to sleep is a priority. You're not available at all times, at all scenarios. It's just not it's not what happen. It's not what happens all the time. Of course, you have specific projects that are urgent, and sometimes like there here and there exceptions, but it's not part of the rule anymore. Also, offsites, trips, things like that make a difference, and they consider it being, or work from home remotely. I know with Corona, a lot of things changed, but still a lot of companies are now coming back to the office. And I love being in the office. I think it brings a lot of benefits, but at the same time, there are scenarios with people with kids that they have to work from home. It just allows them also to be more productive at home, and it's a part of a lot of companies and founders and colleagues that needs to understand, especially the ones that don't have kids.
What is like the most important thing which are changing at the day when you actually come back? Is it like decision making, or maybe how you prioritize, or how you operate at
Prioritization.
the level?
Prioritization. This is first one. Different priorities, and you literally prioritize everything in your day to day. You become more productive also because of it, right? So there's no more wandering around. There's no more let me figure this out later on. No, it's now. And this is an important task now. And this prioritization, it really helps you even with your work. Before, if you were not a person that used to prioritize things, also your to-dos, you start prioritizing a lot more your to-dos. You know what needs to be delivered, you know what needs to be done. And you just get, I have to say, before I had my daughter, I used to work 12 hours a day easily and get things done. Now I can get the same amount done that I did before her, that I did with 12 hours in 6 hours. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Because when you have more time, I think you're just doing the things easier, relaxed, and now you're under pressure that you have to do that.
Yeah, exactly, and it's the pressure that there's no way out. Like it's not this pressure that you can escape from. You have to pick them up. You have to wake up. It's just I have a friend that we talk a lot about this in the bed, like when you wake up in the morning, right? So it's like, oh, I like to be lazy in the morning and sleep in and snooze. Like as soon as you have a child, there's no way you can do that anymore. You just have to get up. So it's just something
Yeah,
you
we
get
may
used to.
have different priorities right now, and it's a bit hard to understand for people who are not in that situation for now.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for uncovering this. And I have one more topic which is related to the partnership. As I remember, you mentioned something about when investment comes, they can recognize, but how should actually founders think about decisions when they should bring on investors?
I think it's part of the identity of the company, right? Nowadays, it's very easy for you to become a founder. It's very easy for you to open a company. There's multiple ways, multiple technologies, and governments are making it easier and easier for you to actually open a business. But you have to think about why you actually want to do it. And what it is that you're willing to go through this process. That's why thinking about your values, being self-reflective makes a very big difference. Because if you are a person that you like to have control over your business, the moment you bring an investor in, you lose control of your company. And you need to understand this very, very much, because investors, and I'm sorry for the ones that are here listening, I like investors, but they need to come for a very strategic way that you are willing to have this conversation. You're willing to have to lose this power that you have over your company. They have different priorities. Also, maybe you have different goals that you have with revenue in the company, or different products that you want to build, but they are revenue, revenue, revenue. They're investing in your company not because everything is flowers and they believe in this idea and vision. Yeah, they can believe in the vision and the idea, but they are investing in your company because they believe your company is going to bring them a return on investment later on. That's the only reason. So yeah, it makes it maybe easier as well for you to deal with the day-to-day of the company and not worry about cash in the business, but it comes with some consequences. If you decide to do it at the bootstrap, of course it's very hard. It's every single month, every single day you're fighting for that next ticket coming in, but you still have then this control, and you're able to decide things that normally in another situation you wouldn't have. And at the same time, the last point with investors, you need to think of it. Sometimes people sell it as it being, oh, it's the person that's going to be this partner for me forever. No, it's actually, you have to think of investors as a marriage where you know there's going to be a divorce. 100% going to be a divorce. So how it is that you actually want to deal with that, what it is the person that you actually want to have this divorce with later on.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, if you treat your company as a baby, you're more attached to the company and everything happening inside. And when investors come, then it's definitely not the same. So you will not be able to raise your baby as you want.
Exactly.
Probably. I never had that
Exactly.
experience, but that's what I heard from your sentences before.
Yeah, and it has the goods and the bads. Everything has the goods and the bads, but it is like that. They have different priorities, and that's just the name of the game.
Yeah, that's great. And I will end this podcast with two questions because we spoke a lot about reflections during all the discussion. When it comes to you, what's like maybe a leadership lesson which took you the longest to learn?
The vulnerability part. I was very, I was afraid of admitting my vulnerability, because that's just thought, oh, I'm not good enough, right? I think also a lot of people have this imposter syndrome of thinking, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. And admitting that I'm actually not good enough, it makes
What
me
happened
be
to
even
you so
worse.
you admit that?
So I have been very fortunate of having incredible mentors around me, incredible coaches around me. I do therapy. I actually go to a therapist every week, and I think it's important to do it. And talking about this is what made me have the courage to actually open up, because there was mistakes I was doing on the day-to-day that I was realizing that I wasn't creating this trust with my team. I wasn't being the leader that I wanted to be with my team, and I couldn't understand what was wrong with it. And all of my mentors, and this is what I'm really fortunate at, they have always been incredible leaders and always very vulnerable with me. And they started pointing out, Bruna, you need to do this. Bruna, you need to do this. And the moment I turned this key inside of me, it was a game changer for my career and for my leadership and the people around me.
Yeah, that's really great lesson, and I think it's really hard if you don't do a coaching or therapy to actually figure this out on your own, even if you reflect on a daily basis.
Exactly.
Yeah, and for the end, but now don't focus on the vulnerability, because this podcast is called Leaders of Growth. I will not ask you for an advice, you gave them a lot for now. I'm mostly interested to hear about this. What do you know now from pipe drive, from motherhood, from the whole journey which you have, that you wish someone had told to you maybe 10 years ago or in the right moment before you had to learn it in the hard way?
Implement a learning loop in everything you do. That's on the product, that's on the company, that's on everything. You have always data coming in, and you have always things coming in. Test it out, test things out. Don't be afraid of because complicate. Yeah, you try things to be perfect. You always look for things to be perfect. It could be your product, it could be your communication, your marketing, your anything on your day-to-day, especially when it comes to your company. You're looking for the perfection. There's no such thing. Just implement it, learn it, get feedback, get data as fast as possible.
Yeah. Bruna, thank you. I really enjoyed in the conversation. It was really great discussing about all of these topics. And one thing which stayed with me is actually that your growth is happening when you grow inside first, because after all of these reflections and everything, you're getting the answers, and then everything around you can grow.
Exactly. That's you summarize it very well.
Yeah. Is there anything like you think we missed in the discussion which you want just to wrap it up in the end?
I would just say, don't be afraid of the uncomfortable. Don't be afraid of it. That's what actually makes you grow.
Nice one. Thank you. So for everyone watching, if you have some idea out of this conversation, just write us in comments what you will apply. And if you found this valuable, subscribe to this channel, like this video, or share it with someone who is building and maybe is struggling to show vulnerability, or just to make some reflections. I'm Milan Savov, and until next time, keep leading, keep scaling, keep growing. Bye-bye. All right, so that's it for today. And if this episode got you thinking about your growth and how it works behind the scenes, here are 2 things you should do next. First, subscribe to this channel and like this video, because on Leaders of Growth podcast, we don't chase just tactics. We break down what actually drives sustainable pipeline and revenue for modern B2B SaaS company. Second, if you're serious about understanding your own situation, you can book an AI and SEO growth call. Whether you're a CEO who tries to protect their revenue or a CMO who tries to protect the pipeline, guessing is the most expensive option. The link is down below, and thank you for watching. See you into the next episode.